I found out I was the daughter of undocumented immigrants on the day of my graduation. Camila Ramirez always believed she was just like everyone else. She grew up in Los Angeles like any other American teenager, hating homework, loving her friends, nurturing big dreams, and juggling a jam-packed schedule. Ever since she was little, she never once questioned who she was. She pledged allegiance with her hand over her heart, lit up fireworks at the park on the 4th of July, and proudly saw her name on honor rolls each semester for her academic achievements. But Camila was different. She just didn't know it. Born in Guadalajara, Mexico, she arrived in the United States at barely 6 months old. Her parents, Rosa and Tomas, had crossed the border in secret one July night, stuffed in the trunk of a battered car, guided by a coyote who charged by the kilometer of hope. They had nothing, only the desire for their daughter to grow up in a country of opportunities. Camila remembered none of it. To her, life began in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Boyle Heights, with constant aromas of homemade food and the murmur of Spanish-language TV in the background. Since childhood, Rosa and Tomas taught her a rock-solid work ethic. If you want something, you earn it, her father always said while sanding doors through the night. Rosa cleaned houses Monday through Saturday. Although she came home exhausted, she never failed to review Camila's homework or make her breakfast before school. In middle school, Camila started to stand out. She earned perfect grades, spoke English and Spanish fluently, won science competitions, and had a natural gift for public speaking. She never tried too hard, yet she excelled, charismatic, determined, and with a sharp mind paired with innate kindness. She befriended everyone from the popular kids to the quiet ones. At 17, she was elected student council president. By 18, her name was widely known among local schools for her speeches, essays, and leadership. The principal called her the pride of Garfield High. Teachers would say that if anyone was going to change the world, it would be her. Camila believed it too, not out of arrogance, but because she'd worked hard to earn it. Her biggest dream was to become a diplomat, imagining a future of travel, international agreements, and social justice. So when she got that acceptance letter from a prestigious East Coast university, full scholarship to study international relations, she cried with joy. Even better, she'd been chosen for a first-year exchange program in France. The world was opening up. Everything was about to begin. One March morning, just days before her graduation ceremony, she sat at her computer to apply for a passport. She had everything ready: her US birth certificate, which wasn't real, though she had no idea, her social security number, her address, completed forms. She typed in her data. Click, error, invalid number, please verify the information entered. She frowned. Tried again, same response. Must be a system error, she thought. She refreshed the page, double-checked each digit. It was the same one she'd used for school enrollment, summer jobs, scholarship paperwork. How could it be wrong? The next day, she decided to go in person to the State Department office. She brought all her documents, dressed formally, carefully styled her hair, just as if attending a job interview. She handed in her papers and waited. An older man with glasses and a somber expression reviewed her info, typed on the computer, then froze. His expression shifted. He looked up at her somewhat uncertainly. "Miss Ramirez, could you step over here, please?" Camila followed him to a small, windowless white room. They made her wait over half an hour. Then another woman entered holding a folder, speaking with polite but distant tone. "Your social security number isn't active. It doesn't show as valid. We need you to verify this with your parents." "How can it not be active?" Camila asked, puzzled. "I've always used that number. It's on all my records." The woman wouldn't elaborate, only suggested Camila talk to her family. They handed back her papers and let her go. Camila went home with her heart pounding. Rosa was in the kitchen cooking arroz con pollo. Tomas hadn't come home from work yet. Camilla stepped in without greeting, tossed her bag on the couch, and stood in front of her mother, eyes full of anger and fear. "Mama, is there something you're not telling me?" Rosa froze. "I tried to get my passport. They say my social security number doesn't work. They told me to talk to you." Silence. "What's going on, Mama?" Rosa lowered her gaze, set the spoon in the sink, wiped her hands on a dishcloth, and sat down. Camilla sensed something was about to shatter. Her mother took her hand, trembling. "Mija, you don't have papers." Camilla jerked her hand away like it burned. "What do you mean, no papers? What are you talking about?" At that very moment, Tomas walked in. Rosa looked at him, and without a word, he understood it was time. He sat next to them. They spoke calmly, between pauses and tears, explaining everything. Camila was born in Mexico. They'd crossed the border with her as an infant, using fake documents ever since. That her social security number was someone else's. That all she'd believed she possessed wasn't real, legally speaking. "We wanted you to have a better life," Rosa said brokenly. "We hid the truth so you wouldn't carry that burden." Camilla didn't respond. She couldn't. She felt the ground vanish. Everything she believed about herself was crumbling. Her identity, her future, her achievements, all lies. She went to her room, shut the door, didn't come out. She ate nothing that night, barely slept. She didn't even cry, just sat on the edge of her bed, hugging her knees, staring blankly. The pride of her school, the girl everyone admired, had just discovered her entire life was a carefully built lie, and no one else knew. The night that should have been the most important of her life, Camilla felt like an outsider. While everyone celebrated happily with genuine smiles, families hugging, photos with metallic balloons and bouquets, she walked among them like a shadow in a cap and gown. The main auditorium was decked out in red and gold streamers, twinkling lights, a stage reading "Class of 2023" in large letters. On the outside, everything looked perfect. Inside, Camilla was in pieces. Her hand shook, clutching her diploma. Nobody noticed. Her smile in photos was polite, reserved, frozen, but if anyone had looked closely, her eyes were full of a storm. Each "congratulations" tightened the knot in her throat. What had she actually accomplished? A flawlessly executed fraud, a life founded on non-existent legal standing. She'd told no one beyond her parents. Only 5 days had passed since that night's bombshell revelation at home. Since then, Camilla had pretended skillfully. None of her classmates suspected the star student, valedictorian, about to give the commencement address, had just learned she was undocumented. A word that until then seemed remote, about others, never about her. When her turn came to speak, the crowd rose in standing ovation, the moment everyone awaited. Principals, teachers, and families had been buzzing for weeks about hearing Camila Ramirez, voice of the future. She walked slowly to the podium, each step a battle against that invisible weight. She'd written a hopeful, proud, grateful speech months before, but at the last second, she tucked it into her gown pocket. She inhaled. Her voice, though steady, was more somber than usual. "Good evening, everyone. Today, we close a chapter that shaped our lives. We're leaving with achievements, lessons, but also questions. Because sometimes, behind every diploma, there are stories that go untold." A brief pause. Nobody quite followed her meaning, but her expression revealed plenty. She went on, giving a short, vaguely intense speech. She never spoke explicitly, but each line carried a hidden message. "Thank you to all who taught us beyond the textbooks, to those who gave us quiet strength. May we never forget, not everyone starts from the same place, but we all deserve to arrive." When she stepped off stage, thunderous applause followed. Some were moved to tears, hearing metaphors about sacrifice and perseverance without knowing how literal her words were. Camilla embraced her parents after the ceremony. Rosa wept, but not from joy. Tomas said nothing, just holding Camilla like she was about to crumble. That same night, while her classmates partied in restaurants, bars, or private get-togethers, Camilla locked herself in her room, setting the diploma on her desk, removing her cap. She studied her reflection a long time, not recognizing it. Who was she? An imposter? A victim? Both. Over the following days, she shut herself away. No calls, no replies, barely left her room. Phone off. She hardly slept, barely ate, hours staring at a blank computer screen, lacking the strength to type. Learning her status was an earthquake in her soul, and she was alone in the rubble. Rosa tried talking to her, but Camilla gave curt answers. Tomas left earlier for work each day. The house was tense and silent, broken only by neighbors celebrating the end of the school year or nightly fireworks, reminding her the world kept turning while her own had ground to a halt. One afternoon, aimlessly, Camilla opened her Instagram account, the platform she used most, where she had school friends, acquaintances, a few teachers, old classmates. She didn't know why, just felt compelled to speak, to post something, anything. That was her only outlet. She wrote without considering the fallout. "My name is Camilla. I graduated this week, and many congratulated me, but nobody knows what I'm really going through. A few days ago, I found out I don't have papers, that all I thought I knew about myself wasn't true. My parents crossed the border with me when I was 6 months old, used fake documents to protect me. I grew up thinking I was just like everyone else. Now I can't get a passport or use my scholarship in France. I can't do anything. And yet, here I am, living between the lines, afraid, but still strong." She attached a photo of her diploma on the bed, posted it without rechecking. She closed her laptop, collapsed onto bed, exhausted, expecting nothing. But by the next morning, she had over 1,000 notifications. It had gone viral. Schoolmates, activists, other undocumented youths who'd never felt seen had shared it. Some media outlets started messaging her directly. Teachers left heartwarming comments. Old friends wrote lengthy DMs thanking her bravery. Her personal outpouring became a runaway tide, making Camilla inadvertently spark something. And there was no way to put out that flame. Most of her life, Camilla Ramirez had quietly stood out. Her achievements spoke for her, her trophies lined the school's shelves, and administrators named her with pride. But no one, absolutely no one, knew what she had hidden beneath her graduation gown. No legal status in a country she regarded as her own. That truth, revealed days before graduation, shattered her in two. Yet when she shared her pain online, it became more than personal. Her frank, unembellished post touched a collective wound, shared thousands of times overnight. Each like, retweet, or comment was a door opening onto a new reality she'd never planned to face, the reality of being heard. The first messages came from teens in other cities, Chicago, Phoenix, Houston, writing from libraries, classrooms, cramped dorms. All had that same intangible bond, being invisible like her. They thanked her for voicing what they'd kept quiet from fear. Then came emails from migrant nonprofits, small and nationwide, wanting to meet her, have her speak, share her testimony at community events and dreamer conferences. Her first formal invite was from a high school in East LA, where a teacher had printed out her Instagram post and pinned it on the counseling room wall. "She's just like you," he told his students, and she had the courage to say it. Camilla agreed to go. It was a simple talk, no mics or stage. Just her in front of 30 teens at wooden desks, wide-eyed. She shared her story with trembling voice, a knot in her throat forcing frequent stops. At the end, several students approached her quietly. One boy, about 14, whispered, "I'm just like you, but nobody knows." That moment changed her. Afterward, invitations flowed. Universities, Latino student clubs, youth conferences, lawyer collectives, grassroots movements. In a matter of weeks, Camilla went from shutting herself in her room to being a regular speaker at public forums, sometimes in English, sometimes Spanish, always from the heart. At one early panel, they introduced her as the new voice of the migrant youth, which made her uneasy. She wasn't hunting for fame, had no political aspirations, never wanted to be a poster child. But she recognized her story had broken a barrier, and though it hurt, her testimony was needed. She quickly learned to handle tough questions without losing her warmth. When asked if she blamed her parents for bringing her in illegally, she answered firmly, "My parents didn't bring me here to harm me. They did it to save me. They didn't commit a crime. They made a desperate act of love." That line appeared days later in various local media headlines. Soon bigger outlets sought her out, first a local TV network, then interviews in national outlets, eventually an invitation to a documentary on undocumented youth. She accepted humbly, but each time she was on camera, her mother would shut off the TV and her father would lock himself in a room. The fear at home grew. "What if someone reports us?" Rosa whispered at night. "You shouldn't show your face," Thomas said grimly. "Now everyone knows who you are." "What am I supposed to do? Keep silent, hide like I'm a mistake?" Camilla didn't speak in anger. She responded calmly but resolutely, understanding her parents' fear. They'd lived it, yet she knew silence wouldn't protect her forever. Tension lingered at home. Everyone felt that at any moment there might be a knock on the door demanding explanations. Even with close neighbors, Rosa and Tomas grew cautious, never mentioning Camilla in the bakery or at church. They became ghosts in their own community, while Camilla was recognized nationwide. Still, she pressed on. She got involved with United We Dream, Define American, and Immigrants Rising, working on educational outreach, writing op-eds, setting up workshops for people like her. She learned legal terms, sought professional counsel, delved into migration law with the passion she once had for Jane Austen novels. She found more than a cause, she found purpose. But visibility had a price. Every message of support came with insults. People attacked her, calling her an enabler of illegal activity, a bad example. She seldom replied, saving it all, aware it could be used against her later. She knew one thing for sure. She was no longer invisible. And if her visibility helped other kids stop living in fear, it was worth every sleepless night. The first scare came randomly. Camilla was at home reviewing emails about a Berkeley talk when she heard the mailbox clang. She went down and found an official envelope, one of those you never want. White, black letters, all caps. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Opening it, she felt the blood drain from her face. You are required to appear for a mandatory interview related to the use of false documentation. This summons does not imply formal charges, but is compulsory, and your absence may lead to legal action. She read it over and over. She couldn't believe it. She'd had a sense of walking a tightrope. She was braced for something, but seeing her name on a federal letter was that jolt, dropping her from the high wire. She rushed to the bathroom and threw up in terror. She tried not telling her parents yet, not wanting them more anxious. But that same afternoon, something happened that made it impossible to hide. Rosa, on her own, went to a government office trying to renew some old ID with altered data she'd used for 15 years. She believed, as long as she kept a low profile, nothing would happen. She was wrong. While waiting, 2 men in plain clothes approached her by name, asked her to step aside. Rosa assumed it was a routine check, but inside a locked room, they showed her a file. Her real name, her fingerprints, her irregular entry into the country, her entire life laid out in official documents. She had no option to lie. They arrested her on charges of fraudulent documents and unlawful presence. Camilla got a call an hour later from an unknown number. "Is this Miss Camilla Ramirez?" "Yes, who's this?" "I'm Officer Martinez from ICE. Your mother is now in custody. We need you to come sign papers and answer some questions." She froze, mind swirling with images. Her mother in handcuffs, her father shutting down, Camilla driving to an unknown facility. Their entire family had become targets, possibly a neighbor or someone on social media, maybe just a random tip. But her confessions online, her public story, had become evidence. The heartfelt narrative that once inspired had turned into a trap. Tomas refused to accompany her to the detention center, staying home wordless, as though his mind had left his body. Camilla arrived alone, shaking. An official greeted her politely, but with no warmth. They made her wait, then took her to a room to answer direct questions, impersonal, cold, no time for emotion. "Do you acknowledge using a social security number that wasn't yours?" "Yes." "Do you realize that's a federal offense?" "I do now. I didn't know before." "Who gave you that number?" "I don't know. I was a baby." Each answer stabbed like a knife. She didn't want to cry, not in front of them, but when she asked about her mother and they said Rosa was being transferred to Adelanto detention, she lost it. Air left her chest. Hands covered her face. She bent over the chair, crying silently, fully aware she was on camera. Exiting the facility, a different camera awaited. A local TV reporter who'd heard about the arrest. The news spread quickly. In a blink, Camilla's name returned to headlines, but with a fresh mix of sympathy and condemnation. Conservative outlets branded her an illegality enabler, using her story as a shield for criminal acts. Opinion columnists called her irresponsible, a political tool, even an emotional terrorist. Social media, which had once showered love, was now split. Some fought tooth and nail defending her, launching support campaigns, protests, fundraising. Others bombarded her with hateful attacks. "Go back to your country. People like you ruined the system. Your mother's in jail because of your arrogance." Camilla stopped sleeping, barely ate. Every phone ping felt like a threat, a reminder her life and her family's was no longer private. Rosa, from inside detention, only asked one thing in her brief calls: that Camilla not stop speaking out, not shrink back. "Don't stay quiet, mija," she said softly through the phone. "They're on to us anyway. Let it at least mean something." Camilla understood. Her voice was both weapon and shield. She'd come this far not just for herself. Now more than ever, she had to persist. Rosa's arrest and Camilla's ICE summons marked a new, darker phase. If earlier her story was a symbol of hope, now it was a target for moral arguments, polarizing talking points, personal attacks. That star student turned out to be portrayed in some corners as a threat to law and order, a poor example that had to be shut down. It all started with an opinion piece in a conservative publication titled "The New Face of Fraud, a Brilliant Student with Fake Papers." Hours later, numerous media outlets picked it up, using pictures gleaned from Camilla's social networks. One behind a podium at a conference, one in her cap and gown, one hugging her mom. All used without her consent, all accompanied by out-of-context quotes with sensationalist headlines fueling anger. Soon her phone number was leaked. Then her address, her email. The messages ranged from direct insults to explicit threats. "We know where you live. You're not American. Go back. You'll be deported next." Camilla tried standing strong. She responded resolutely online, thanked supporters, ignored trolls. But privately, every text, every ring made her tremble. She disabled notifications, hid her location, stopped sharing her personal daily life. She pulled back from social media a few days, losing touch with some in her circle. A few friends cut her off, others unfollowed her. Even classmates who once cheered her now stayed silent or shared anti-immigrant posts. Some parents of students she'd collaborated with wrote letters to the schools, hosting her speaking events, demanding her appearances be cancelled. "Not a role model for our children," they claimed. The most painful blow came from a teacher who'd been like a second mother to her. The teacher emailed coldly, saying she loved Camilla but couldn't condone her activism. Laws exist for a reason. Camilla didn't reply, just cried quietly. But in the midst of all this pain, something unexpected happened. One exhausted evening, Camilla decided to film a simple video in her bedroom. No makeup, no script, no plan, just her, swollen-eyed, voice hoarse from sleepless nights. She uploaded it to her networks without much thought. "My name is Camilla Ramirez," she said, staring at the camera. "And I want to say something very clearly. Being invisible wasn't my choice. It was forced on me. I didn't choose to cross a border at 6 months old or live in fear. I didn't choose to have my parents falsify documents to give me a better life. But now I choose to speak up, and I won't be silent, even if they try to make me." The video ran just over 2 minutes, but within seconds of posting it, ignited. It went viral on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Activists, artists, professors, students shared it with the hashtag "Being invisible is not a choice." Many called it the boldest statement they'd heard in years. The narrative flipped again. Critical scowls turned empathetic. Camilla was no longer just the undocumented kid, but a strong young woman, championing those who couldn't speak up. Within days, some of her old high school classmates organized a vigil at the local city hall, lighting candles, holding signs reading, "Education isn't a crime. Camilla is all of us. No more fear, more justice." University professors collectively wrote a letter to Congress advocating dignity for undocumented students. Online forums sprang up. Tens of thousands of petitioners demanded Rosa be released, and all charges against Camilla dropped. A human rights NGO offered free legal representation. Another, specializing in digital security, helped secure her online presence. Even the university awarding her scholarship issued a statement reaffirming unwavering support. Her financial aid was safe, and the school would adapt any administrative procedures to her legal situation. State senators spoke publicly in her favor. One member of Congress showed interest in drafting legislation inspired by her story. For the first time since it began, Camilla felt she wasn't alone, but she wasn't naive. Hatred wouldn't vanish. They were still watching, waiting for her next misstep, so each time she spoke publicly, she chose her words carefully. She was prepared, yet she never betrayed her truth. "If educating myself is a crime," she said in a national TV interview, "then this country needs to redefine its idea of justice." Her voice no longer shook. She was no longer simply a bright student. She was an inconvenient figure for some, but essential to many. She'd crossed from personal to political, though the cost was steep. No threats or revelations could strip her of the dignity that came from telling the truth. If you like this story, give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. Morning arrived gray in downtown Los Angeles. Since early TAS, its streets were busier than usual. Outside the federal immigration courthouse, dozens of people had already gathered holding posters, some wearing T-shirts that said, "Camilla is not alone," others carrying signs reading, "Being undocumented isn't a crime." The rally had come together in under 2 days. Community groups, students, teachers, activists, local politicians, all united for one cause, supporting Camilla on her public hearing day. She showed up quietly, face calm, heart at war, wearing a plain white blouse, dark jeans, and the same navy jacket she always wore when seeking comfort. As she got out of the car, applause broke out. She made no dramatic gestures, just raised her gaze, nodded politely, and continued inside the courthouse. Her lawyer, Mariana Ortega, a Latina immigration rights veteran, walked beside her. The hearing room was nearly full. Front row reserved for dreamer advocates, human rights activists, community leaders. Farther back sat local state representatives, foreign observers, at least 3 national TV cameras. Camilla's case was no longer personal but public. The presiding judge, William Hughes, was known for his reserved demeanor and a mixed record on immigration cases. The room felt charged with tension. Nobody knew which way it would go. When they called Camilla's name, the crowd shifted. Camilla rose slowly, inhaled deeply before approaching the bench. She knew every word would be recorded, broadcast, dissected. She couldn't fail, but she wasn't speaking to persuade, rather to be heard. "Good morning. I'm Camilla Ramirez," she began, voice clear. "I'm 19. I graduated with honors and was accepted to a university on a full scholarship. I grew up believing I was a citizen of this country because my entire life has been here, until I tried to get a passport to study abroad. That's when I found out I was invisible in this system, that legally I don't exist." She paused. No one breathed. "My parents came across the border with me when I was 6 months old. They had no money, no opportunities, no papers, only the wish for me to have a different life, one without hunger, fear, or hardship." Judge Hughes watched intently. Camilla's voice wavered but stayed strong. "Yes, they used fake papers. Yes, they hid the truth, but not from malice, from love, from fear, from necessity. They hid me so I could have a future. I'm not their accomplice. I'm their consequence." Some in the audience wept silently. Her attorney stared at the floor, taking notes. No need to step in. Her client's testimony carried more power than any legal argument. "I'm not here for sympathy," Camilla said, looking directly at the judge. "I'm here for something more fundamental, dignity. This country, the only one I've known, taught me to study hard, to work, to speak the truth. Now it tells me I don't belong. But I do belong, because belonging isn't a piece of paper. It's a life." The quiet hum of approval spread in the gallery. The judge gently banged his gavel for silence. Camilla lowered her eyes a moment, and before returning to her seat, she finished with the words she'd carried in her heart for weeks. "I don't want forgiveness. I want you to see me, and see my parents, not as criminals but for who they are. Survivors, workers, mothers and fathers, human beings." She walked back slowly, her lawyer discreetly touching her arm in support. The judge announced a recess, needing time to review documents, testimony, the case's impact. There'd be no same-day decision. Upon leaving the courthouse, Camilla was met with hugs and cheers. But she raised no fists, shed no tears for the cameras. She just closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of having faced, at last, a system that for so long had tried to silence her. She had no clue what came next, but in that moment, she'd spoken her truth, and no one could take that from her. 14 days exactly passed after Camilla's hearing before the immigration court issued its resolution. 14 days in which anxiety became constant, turning sleep impossible, meals mechanical. Every phone ring or notification froze her heart momentarily. Her life and her mother's, suspended between hope and dread. The resolution arrived on a Tuesday morning in a secure email to her lawyer's office. Mariana Ortega, normally composed, sounded different on the phone, excited yet restrained. "Camilla, I have good news." Camilla said nothing, waiting for the words that would change everything. "Judge Hughes decided to suspend your mother's deportation. She was granted supervised release. She'll be out of detention this week." Air flooded Camilla's lungs. She couldn't believe it. "Are you serious? Really?" "Yes, that's not all. He's also approved you to remain in the country under provisional status while your case is reviewed. Not a guaranteed path, but it's a reprieve. Under these circumstances, it's a big win." Camilla stayed silent at first, tears filling her eyes, not from rage or helplessness, but relief. That same afternoon, news leaked. Though normally an immigration hearing wouldn't make headlines, Camilla's story had national scope now. In hours, major outlets covered the judge's decision with unexpectedly positive slants. Judge suspends mother's deportation after daughter's heartfelt plea. Justice listens. Camila Ramirez secures partial victory, moves the nation. A brave young woman changes her family's fate. On social media, Camila's name trended again. The hashtag Justicia para Camila was revived by celebrities, local politicians, activists, thousands of youths sharing snippets of her court testimony. Many recognized the ruling didn't just help her family, but brought hope to others in similar predicaments. Immigration rights groups publicly celebrated. The university awarding her scholarship released an official statement reaffirming unwavering support, saying the scholarship still stood and any administrative requirements would adapt to her legal status. Several California state senators spoke publicly in her defense. A member of Congress even planned a bill inspired by her story. When Camila reunited with Rosa in the ICE parking lot, no cameras, no reporters, no speeches, just Camila, Mariana, and 2 NGO volunteers. Rosa emerged with hair tied up, a small backpack, exhaustion in her eyes. At the sight of Camila, she opened her arms and collapsed into them like they were the only safe place on earth. "I promised I wouldn't leave you alone," Camila whispered. "And I kept my promise, Mama." "We kept it." Rosa couldn't speak, only cried the tears she'd held back in detention, but this time she wept as a free woman. In the following days, the Ramirez home was filled with renewed life. Though still under legal supervision, Rosa had to sign in weekly at an assigned office and couldn't leave the state without permission. Camila had to report periodically until her final status got resolved. But for once there was stability, a sliver of peace, and most of all, legitimacy. Tomas, though still tense, smiled again, accompanying his wife to lawyer meetings, joining community groups, even agreeing to a brief radio interview. Fear wasn't gone, but no longer ruled their lives. Meanwhile, Camila became the living symbol of what it means to resist. She was invited to speak at Sacramento's state capitol, help draft a pilot program for undocumented youth mental health, and while still in limbo herself, used each day to speak for those who couldn't. "If schooling's a crime," she said in a national TV spot, "then this country needs to rethink its concept of justice." Her name and face popped up in murals, magazine features, documentaries, but she remained grounded. Her fight wasn't about fame, but fairness. Though aware the legal path was still long, she knew she wasn't alone. She had directly confronted the system. She'd cried, shouted, spoken, and she'd won a battle many deemed unwinnable. Judge Hughes, in his decision, wrote a line that stuck: "When law encounters humanity, justice must pause to listen." This time, justice listened indeed. Her first semester in college arrived laden with emotions Camila never anticipated. While classmates arrived with new backpacks, fresh notebooks, and standard freshman excitement, she carried a story laced with scars. She started her law studies on a full ride, aware that her seat was earned through pain, struggle, and a personal bravery she was still honing daily. Her classes were tough, not academically but emotionally. Hearing about constitutional principles, civil rights, due process felt ironic. She knew firsthand the contradiction of a country that preaches justice but erases millions. That's when she realized she didn't just want to be any lawyer. She wanted to be a bridge, a voice, a tool, not content with books alone, but intent on transforming lives. So she launched Races, Invisibles, Invisible Roots, a plan scribbled in her personal notebook that, within weeks, became a tangible support network. The goal was clear: to give basic legal guidance and emotional support to immigrant youths and families in vulnerable situations, especially those who, like Camila, had grown up in the US, unaware they were undocumented. The first workshop was held in a small Boyle Heights community center, her old neighborhood. Camila handled every detail, printing flyers, arranging chairs, making coffee. She expected a modest turnout, but the place filled up, teenagers with anxious faces, parents with small kids, silent fathers. All shared one thing: fear. A fear Camilla intimately understood. She spoke first, no jargon, no scripts, just her story, her feelings, her darkest moments, how she'd chosen to fight anyway. She stopped multiple times, choking back tears. When she finished, no one clapped right away. The silence felt heavy, then tears, hugs, questions. The impact was immediate. Word spread. So 2 weeks later, they needed a larger space. Professors volunteered. Latino psychologists offered emotional care. A local NGO donated computers. Another gave free legal advice. Camila, juggling her coursework and the new project, hardly slept. She was overwhelmed, but each time someone thanked her for helping me figure out who I am, she found strength again. To her, the best part was seeing Rosa and Tomas step out of the shadows. At first, they'd come quietly to events, sitting in the back. Then Rosa started greeting attendees with coffee and sweetbread, smiling warmly. Tomas, quiet but attentive, helped set up, carrying supplies. They no longer hid, no longer lived in terror of being recognized. Camilla had given them back something they believed lost forever: the right to be seen. One night, after a particularly moving session, Rosa approached her daughter while they cleaned up. "I never thought we'd be here, Misha," she said, voice shaky. "Without fear, people listening." "Now they listen, Mama," Camilla answered, "because we're not alone." Soon, Raíces Invisibles branched out to other states: Arizona, Texas, New York. It received foundation funding, social innovation awards, international recognition. But for Camilla, the real reward was witnessing a family walk in scared and leave hopeful. Meanwhile, she saw her parents transform from frightened wage earners to strong advocates. They still waited on a final immigration decision, but they no longer hid. They attended events, shared their stories, guided others. They became quiet role models of resilience, and though they still lacked certain documents, they now had something they'd never possessed before: visibility, community, purpose. Camilla never forgot those days of drawn curtains, nor the choking feeling when she first learned she was illegal. The cold hearing room, her mother's trembling voice on the phone from detention, but she also remembered the first time a 12-year-old came up after a talk and said, "Thank you for existing, because now I believe I can too." That alone fueled her to keep going, resisting, transforming. She needed no passport to prove who she was. She knew each time she walked onto a campus, guided a family, read a letter from someone across the country, that her citizenship wasn't in a paper, but in the story she touched. In each barrier she helped tear down. And though the system still didn't grant her full rights, this country could no longer deny her voice, a voice birthed from silence, molded by pain, strengthened by love, and shining like a beacon for those still cloaked in darkness. If you enjoyed this story, you'll definitely love the next one on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and enable notifications. Until next time.